In a recent video of mine, I included this quote from Raoul Pal regarding how the entire economy is heading on chain, and that the smart contract networks are only the rails that can actually not just run this, but also provide the scalability needed for this to happen. Now, the main thing that we're looking at is also AI agents, fully automated finance. The existing financial system physically cannot carry them. It's too slow. And it looks like institutional players are now catching on. Just last week, Franklin Templeton called AI agents a use case that finally drives blockchain adoption. We're talking about mass adoption here as well. Coinbase's agent payment rails got adopted by Google and Amazon. Samsung put stablecoins in the Galaxy wallet. I mean, everything that we're seeing here, we're starting to see the craziest setup for the new financial system to rise. And one key player that I'm looking at to really kind of confirm the fact that like the entire economy, we're talking about the entire global economy moving on chain. The key player here is the DTCC. I mean, if you think about it, right, the DTCC is already tokenizing most of the major stocks out there. And this is with 40 Wall Street firms already. And this officially goes live in October. It's probably going to be one of the most historical launches around crypto, but also probably one of probably the craziest innovation to hit finance in well over like the last decade, maybe even the last 2 decades plus. Like there's not been a lot of modernization in finance. Now, we did hear from Tom Sullivan from the DTCC just recently. So the DTCC processed US trades using tokenized assets on July 15th, a milestone ahead of the tokenization service launching in October of 2026. He stated that blockchain is essentially a shared ledger powered by smart contracts, letting data interact with one another to move not just information, but assets themselves. Check this out.
I do want to get your perspective when it comes to the technology, so the blockchain. So for viewers out there who may not be familiar with this whole process, give us an understanding of the technology underpinning it.
Sure. So blockchain is really simply a shared ledger. It's an infrastructure where information is shared between parties, and it's driven by something called smart contracts. And smart contracts are a way to automate movement of activity. So in traditional world, we operate in a messaging-based systems where data moves from point A to point B. And in a blockchain world, data can interact with each other and can be programmed in a way to move not only information, but assets.
I do want to get your perspective.
So yeah, I mean, listen, blockchain offers some of the best technology efficiencies that we've ever had. This is unlike anything that we've had in the past. And I think that that's exactly why every big player, not just the DTCC, all of the big banks, all of the institutional players, even the NASDAQ has been putting a spotlight on what this really means. This is still regarding the DTCC's tokenization event. Ultimately, the main thing here is tokenization and how it's going to, completely reshape how these markets move and also provide so much more liquidity, transparency, and protection to investors. This is a significant milestone that shows tokenization can occur within existing regulatory frameworks. Real-world transactions build confidence that digital infrastructure can scale while supporting investor protection, price discovery, and deep liquidity. That's coming from the NASDAQ regarding these high-quality assets that were already tokenized, already brought on chain, and also moved within the DTCC's platform. The DTCC tokenization service is expected to launch in October of this year, introducing a digital representation of traditional real-world assets within a regulated institutional framework. NASDAQ believes that collaboration across trading and post-trade ecosystems is essential for tokenization to scale. Yeah, this next phase is going to be absolutely insane. Now, to build off of this, we do have here from Smoke Dog. Yes, the changes we will witness during mass crypto adoption will feel slow, then all at once. Although a lack of regulation might make Web3 feel a bit like the Wild West now, Muralchi predicts that this will change quickly as new innovations bubble up. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. This is documented below. And yeah, I mean, listen, mass adoption will happen. I said this in the past as well. I'm just going to be real with you guys. When we think about the DTCC going live with tokenization services, $114 trillion, that's one name. But all it takes is one. There is going to be a massive snowball effect from the DTCC onward. And that's what a lot of people are missing here. Yeah, it's $100 trillion. Yeah, it's the DTCC. Think bigger. It's like if you had all of these car companies, right? And say for so they weren't actually car companies. Maybe they all were, bicycles, right? But then Ford came out with a vehicle, an actual car. And everyone was like, what is going on here? What is that? Every single major player is now looking to build the same thing, launch the same thing. And that's exactly what's happening here now. The DTCC officially went live. And in October, they go fully live with $100+ trillion moving on chain. What do you think about all of the other big names in finance? What do you think that they're going to think? They're going to think, wow, we need to do this too. We need to look into this. So from October of this year onward, you are going to see massive announcement after massive announcements, all leading to mass crypto adoption all at once. It's a snowball effect. Now, to build on top of this, we also have over here from Subjective Views, the DTCC's digital launchpad is designed to accelerate scalable adoption of digital assets in capital markets and support the path from pilots to production. Like I said, this is going to enable so much more. We're going to start to see an accelerated push towards mass adoption. The DTCC's related tokenization service is scheduled for full launch in October of this year. Check this out.
The emerging technologies that we're testing. And John, I'd like to move to you. And DTCC has a digital asset launchpad, and I'll ask you to just describe briefly what that is. But I think this is a great practical example of how your organization is experimenting and testing some of these areas to try and really discover where are these new value propositions relevant for DTCC and perhaps more broadly the financial markets. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the initiatives that have been within the digital asset launchpad, what they've taught you about the infrastructure required to link tokenized assets to tokenized wholesale money. And when you introduce AI agents as coordinators or the intelligence around these rails, what are some of the biggest interoperability bottlenecks that you think the industry needs to solve now?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I loved Carolyn's point around, finding the real use cases that are actually going to drive value. You can't be taking an AI magic wand and just think you're magically going to solve problems. So the digital launchpad, it's an experimentation environment. It's designed to enable proofs of concept for our participants across leveraging multiple Web3 components, Web3 applications, partners, and from there guide deployment to production in a seamless way. So we're using that launchpad and multiple other environments as well to guide a lot of activities that we're doing right now that we'll be launching in July as well as in October, several different use cases. I think one lesson from the launchpad that we learned was that it's, the hard part is never necessarily tokenizing the asset. Really, as Carolyn mentioned, it's a representation. It's a digital representation of an asset. The technology has been around a long time. You can put a security, a fund share, collateral on a ledger. It's largely solved, I think. But you can't realize the promise of tokenization necessarily unless you have your wholesale cash on the same rail. So that is one of the things that we actually showcased during the collateral experiment last year with Finality. So we showcased an atomic real live DVP with central bank like money. So that was exciting. I think the second lesson is around interoperability. So it's not just a technology problem. It's a legal problem. It's a security problem. It's also an integration with legacy technology problem. There's a lot to it, and it's quite complex. So you don't want to end up rebuilding the same fragmentation that we already have across the markets, because every institution kind of wants to build its own walled garden. And when we think about all of us working together, and you think about financial, the whole point of financial market infrastructure is to be the shared kind of, neutral connective tissue. So a big part of our work has been about pushing standards and pushing, common ways of creating this infrastructure. Now, when you add AI agents, and we're not doing a ton of AI agents within our digital asset launchpad just yet, we're doing it more in our DTCC IQ environment, which is a little bit separate. I think the one big challenge, the bottleneck really sharpens into kind of one word, and that's identity, right? Ensuring that for the agent to move value safely across networks, every party and every asset kind of needs a verifiable, machine-readable identity. And I think the market isn't quite there yet where we actually have a layer that validates that identity.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about this, they're all preparing for this big shift to this technology. I mean, every single one of these conversations is, how do we get there? How do we get there? How can we enable all of this? How can we officially have this basically be the backbone of our financial system? These conversations are so important to understand and realize where we're headed. And of course, Ripple is already there, right? Like when it comes back to the DTCC, Ripple Prime is already inside Wall Street's core infrastructure with the DTCC. Ripple Prime is already tied back to this, regardless of if XRP is a part of this or not. Ripple Prime is. We know XRP is connected back to Ripple Prime. I would assume probably closer to October, towards the end of this year, we get some more confirmations of the networks tied back to this. But the main thing is that, Ripple Prime is a key driver of XRP directly into like a lot of these central plumbing systems, including the DTCCs. It's always about changing the plumbing. It's always about redesigning the system, rewiring it completely. And that's exactly what Ripple is doing here. And that's why when we look at this fact here with ownership of Hidden Road, Ripple can push broader adoption of RLUSD and XRP settlement, potentially making XRP part of the plumbing in traditional markets. Now, yes, potentially is a key word there. It's very important because it's not guaranteed, but I do think that XRP will play a vital role considering everything that we just went over with blockchain. Every large player is already ready for this. Every large player is preparing for it. And, Ripple has core infrastructure that's ready for this big moment. And we even have here that the DTCC announces tokenized securities platform with July pilot, October launch, over 50 firms, working group spans TradFi and DeFi. Look at the bottom down there, right? Yes, you do have Ripple Prime. The key thing though, is that if we look into this a little bit more, the key quote is, it is the integration of digital asset infrastructure into the central plumbing of the US capital markets and not a parallel digital asset ecosystem. And yeah, it's the direct integration. We are starting to see the full integration of this technology. Imagine what happens when we finally get clarity. Imagine what happens when regulations are in place and we start to see these things begin to scale. That's going to be the craziest time because, again, we already just went over all of the connections, all of the major announcements. Yeah, we're watching the financial system moving on chain before we get regulations. Once regulations are in place, it accelerates everything. So everything that we're witnessing now with the DTCC, think about what's happening here. They're front running they're front running clarity essentially. Like they don't need regulations because they already got the green light from the SEC and the CFTC. Imagine what happens once clarity isn't in place though. Then we start to see everything scale. Because initially, obviously, they're not going to bring $114 trillion on chain, but we are going to start to see a large amount of capital entering this market. I'm very excited for what's still left to hit this market. The key thing here, though, is that Ripple and XRP have been validated for years and years by institutional players. Even if they're not included in the DTCC's, push here, I still believe that they are going to be very, very successful long term. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely like, subscribe, notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.